slideshow. Somebody was talking about showing images. I mean, there's all sorts of like slideshow and slideshow programs out there. And then of course there's also printing. We're going to talk about that. So that's Lightroom. It's my favorite, but again, there's free programs, there's iPhoto, there's all kinds of things. So, okay, now we're back. We have all of our amazing tools, and now we're ready to share our adventures. I want to talk about critiquing, and again, this is self-critique. So there's a 10% rule basically, and this is held from film, like all the way, 10%. If you go out and shoot 300 images, do you know how many are good? 30. Do you know how many are really good? 3. So what happens is we're so excited and we have all these emotional ties to these images that we've taken because we were there, and we have the stories and we have everything, and you show your family 300 images and they're asleep and snoring because 30 of them are really good. So if you want to wow them, only show them the 30 images. It's a pretty safe, it's a pretty safe way to go. Just think about 10%. In 3, you go and pay and get printed and you put them on your wall. And again, I show off your travels, make prints. There's Holland Photo if you're south. Holland Photo is an amazing film lab. If you, Precision Camera. Precision Camera is the other one. I mean, make prints. And make nice prints. It's not cheap, but again, if you whittle down, you have your amazing adventure and you whittle down your 30 images or your 300 images into 30 really good ones that you're going to put in a slideshow and show your family, and then you whittle that down to 3 images that you're going to print and hang on your wall. I mean, it is worth the investment. Darkroom. There's still a darkroom co-op in town if that's something that you're interested in. And then slideshows are fun too. There's all sorts of free programs. Lightroom, Mac has their program, but slideshows are great too. All right, review. Plan your trip. Plan your trip. The more you plan, the better your images are going to be because you're going to have it in your head. Essential camera gear. Make sure you have extra batteries, lots of memory cards. Using your camera, everybody's going to go home and study shutter speed and aperture and ISO, and it's going to start to make sense, I promise. And then, of course, everyone wants to look at the back of the camera and be totally wowed and amazed at what they're seeing, and sometimes that really does happen. Sometimes, it needs to go back and be edited just a little bit, and then make sure you actually share your images. And I think we're done. Okay. So now we only have 20 minutes, but I want to answer questions, and I want to show you more too. There's so much to see here. I want to show you this one really quick, and then I promise I'll answer questions too. This is an Texas photographer, who's named Keith Carter, that I'm totally blanking on. And Keith and his wife, instead of going to Machu Picchu or going, away to go do some sort of adventure, he decided that they were going to visit all of these Texas towns, all of these small Texas towns. And so this is called From Uncertain to Blue, and Uncertain is a Texas town, and Blue is a Texas town. And he's shooting this on film, which is fun because, it limits the amount of shots. So again, don't ever think that you need to go somewhere and go click, 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 because it's just not really necessary. It's just not necessary. So he's shooting with a camera called a Hasselblad, which has 12 images. I mean, he's going to put in a roll of film and have 12 images. And it's really fun. These are called contact sheets. And I mean, you can create basically a contact sheet, with your own digital images, basically just by looking at them. Like, how did I approach this situation? Did I walk over here? Did I bend down? Did I look up? And you'll start to see, man, if I just stepped over here, I would have had, a completely different image. So it's fun to watch a professional go through and just kind of see how they approach a situation and the images that they take, especially when it's a limited number of images. And then it's also completely amazing to see the image that they chose, and why did they choose it. So he included these throughout the book. where you can see, you know, how he walked up to this person and he shot them kind of here, and then he walked over, and then you can see the image that he finally chose. Looking at contact sheets, Magnum, this photographer is a member of that collective called Magnum, and they have a thing online called like contact sheets, and you can go look at all the pros and you can just see, you know, how they shoot, and you can see their favorites and how they edit it, and again, 100% will make you a better photographer. Just looking at images, PDN is a pretty good magazine. Sometimes it could be, I mean, if you're just looking for images, it might not be the best. It can get a little gear techy, but they do a lot of contests, and so being able to go through and see, especially, you know, like this was the Great Outdoors contest, so it was very travel oriented, and you can just look and you can see, you know, what is this? This is definitely a rule of thirds. It's another compositional element too called leading lines. You know, this kayak just like leads you straight to these other kayakers. Looking at images, I'm a huge proponent of looking at images because it will make you a better photographer. Here's a great example of depth of field. So in that super wide open aperture, because that owl or falcon or whatever that is completely in focus, and right behind him, you know, they obviously made a choice. I don't care about the person, I don't care about this dude, I really just want that owl. So they chose that super wide open aperture so that the owl or falcon is in focus, but the person isn't. If they wanted them to both be in focus, they would have chosen that F-22, and then they would both be in focus. So I mean, that was, you know, it was a choice that they made. Look at images. Okay, now questions. Yes.
What about Flash?
Oh yeah, Flash. Flash is a whole nother Flash really is like a whole other beast that like I hate to even hardly like attempt. Here's the deal with Flash. You know, this flash that comes on your camera is typically pretty awful because nobody looks good, you know, flashed in the face. So what happens is you get back to that like direction of light, and so if there's some way that you can learn to like use off-camera flash is 1,000 times better. Or if you have you know, some sort of, you've seen like probably, I don't have anything, but modifiers and things that help spread out that light. You know, say you're in a room and you need a little bit more light. You know, you can bounce, like I'm going to bounce it off the ceiling, or somebody else, you know, bounce it off the wall. Anything that you can do to avoid direct flash on your subject, because direct flash on your subject, unless, you know, occasionally there's some sort of like modeling ad or something and like it becomes a thing, but it doesn't look good. It's nothing that anybody ever really wants. Flash can also be used, believe it or not, like during the day. They use something called bill flash. It really just depends on like what you're looking for. It's kind of a different look. I'm okay with having my background blown out. Sometimes you're not. If you're okay with having, I mean, imagine I'm standing here and the sun is behind me or something, so I'm dark. And I want to be in focus, and you want what's behind me, you know, to be visible and in focus. You're probably going to have to use some sort of fill flash to make me not dark and still get the background. I'm okay with blowing out the background to get my subject in focus. And again, you know, if you're traveling too, it's one more thing to carry. Well, unless like it comes on your camera. But again, if you don't have a way to like either modify it or get it off your camera, it's usually best to like try and avoid it. When it pops up, you know, if you're in automatic mode and your flash pops up, what you need to do is close it and start playing with like your ISO and other things. Do that. If you still can't get the shot, use the flash and take the picture. I want you to get the picture. But, if you can, if it's in automatic mode, sometimes it'll be like, you need flash. And that's almost a way that you can be like, okay, I need to change my ISO. I need to see other ways that I can let light in without having to use flash. Does that help?
Totally answers the question, because my flash always comes up and I don't want it to.
Yeah. Just close it. Anyway, yeah.
Speaking of smartphones,
Yeah.
like an HDR version and what's that mean?
So HDR is kind of a new thing too. And it's basically like it's taking a bunch of pictures in a row and like combining them. Sometimes it can be fine, like especially on your phone, it tends to not be. You can do it in like Photoshop and other things, and it can be very heavy-handed and almost start to look like more like a digital drawing almost, because that's not even like how we see with our eyes. Like, when you look at something, things are going to be bright and things are going to be, more washed out. But so what happens, it's like high density something, I don't even know.
High dynamic range.
High dynamic range, thank you, So, it's basically, you're putting all of those things together so that there's nothing blown out and everything. It's a thing. It's fine on your phone, I think, to play with every now and then. Especially because your phone automatically has some limitations that the camera doesn't have. It might give you a much better image, but it's nothing that I would play with too much. Yeah, it's kind of a thing.
If you're taking a picture of a sunset or something, usually like you get a picture of the sunset and everything in the foreground is like totally black. You can't
Yeah.
see. So if you use HDR, it'll get the really pretty sunset and light on all of the, because it takes multiple images, what you said. It'll get light on all of the landscape that you wouldn't have seen otherwise.
So, and that's something we didn't talk about filters. Filters are another way to do, to achieve that. And there's something, and I don't even have one with me, but there's something called the neutral density filter that literally just there's different ways that you can attach them. But what happens is imagine, imagine like a rectangle, and the bottom is going to be really dark, and this is going to be a little lighter, and this is going to be a little lighter. And as you slide it up and down, that's what's happening, is it's saying like, I want you to block some of this light because it's super bright. Okay, so I want you to knock this down like 2 stops. But I want this beautiful, imagine like a mountain range with a sunset, okay? I want the mountain range in focus. I need to block some of this. So that neutral density filter is you move it up and down, you can choose that. So it's gonna block some of the light up here, but allow, light to come in down at the bottom. And you can buy them, like you can buy 1-stop neutral density filters, you can buy like 3 stops. You can also do it in Photoshop, when you're done, or even Lightroom has, the ability to let you bring light in. That's actually huge as far as exposure too. Typically under